Welcome back to the Hit in the Turnbuckle podcast. This is the Crown Jewel review. Crown Jewel had literally just gone off the air from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and a lot went down at Crown Jewel. We're going to get into that and a lot more. And speaking of a lot more, let's start with something that was announced before Crown Jewel, and that is the fact that Bill Goldberg has announced that he will be having his retirement match in the WWE in 2025. Rumors are swirling that that retirement match will be against Gunther. I think Goldberg needs to get into that ring down in NXT or the Performance Center if they're going to go on and face Gunther at some point in 2025 as his retirement match, because Gunther will absolutely murder him, to be quite honest with you. If that is the way they're going to go down next year, I wouldn't fancy Goldberg's chances one bit. And they better not do one of those classic Goldberg style matches where he literally just comes in, spears Gunther, jackhammers him, and beats him, because that will absolutely tarnish the reputation of the Ring General. So, in my opinion, fine for Goldberg to have a retirement match, fine for it to be against Gunther. Just you do not beat him the way in which Goldberg has beaten a lot of opponents, including Hulk. Actually, Hulk Hogan, he had a match with pretty good match actually. So, yeah, do not do that to Gunther. That's for sure. Um, some other news that broke just quickly yesterday are the releases of Tegan Knox, Indy Hartwell, and Baron Corbin. Interesting. I mean, Baron was in a really good run in NXT. Didn't really got called it back up to SmackDown. Didn't really do a lot since being recalled up. But I don't know. I just felt Baron Corbin is one that I feel they could have done. So I don't know. I just felt that momentum was with him. Had a great little run with Braun Breaker a little bit in NXT as well. That and the fact that End of Days has hardly been kicked out of. I mean, he had a finisher there, only a couple of people, I think, kicked out of. So that's an interesting one. Tegan Knox was never really. I mean, you could argue Tegan and Indy Hartwell were just never given the opportunity. Tegan had a lot of injury problems that we know of. Obviously, the knee injuries and whatnot, but she never really got the opportunity, and neither did Indy Hartwell either. So what's going to happen with these three going forward, we don't know. Obviously, we wish them well. Baron Corbin was more contract, I believe, wasn't renewed more than released. Of the other two, I believe, were indeed released. I think Indy Hartwell may have even found out on social media that she was being released from the WWE. That doesn't go down too well, assuming that is true and it wasn't just her playing up to the report on social. So we have to be careful with that. But hopefully, wish those three the best. Whether they end up, I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know. TNA could be good for one or two of those, actually. TNA may be a better one. TNA may be ahead of AEW, but AEW's roster is way too stacked as it is. And in fact, that roster needs some trimming as well. So I can't see them going to AEW. I could see one of the two of them heading towards TNA, perhaps both of the women, maybe. Who knows? Anyway, we wish them well. Goldberg, obviously, retirement match 2025. But let's get into Crown Jewel. And they opened Crown Jewel quite surprisingly with the Bloodline against the OG Bloodline. And the Bloodline consisted of Jacob Fatu, which I was surprised about. I thought perhaps Jacob was going to be left out of this match. It wasn't. It was him. It was Solo and Tama Tonga. I think it was Tonga Loa, I believe, that was left out against Roman, Jimmy, and Jay. They were still teasing a lot of dissension within the original bloodline. We saw a lot of things here where Jay didn't want to tag Roman. He was constantly tagging Jimmy. Eventually, that he did end up tagging Roman Reigns in the match after taking some punishment from the bloodline. Jimmy was out of it at that point. It was quite interesting during this match. I mean, there was a Samoan spike that was hit, and Jimmy was late, I think, with the block of breaking up that pin, and it looked as if the referee had put his hand very close down to three. There was quite a few little mishaps this evening. I know Jericho doesn't like to be called botches or anything like that, and I don't really care what Jericho thinks. I'd rather him not be on our TV screen. But yeah, mishaps is what we'll go with tonight. That was one of them. As I said, Jimmy saving Roman at the point, but I didn't think he quite made it, or the fact, or his timing may have been a bit off on this, but nevertheless, it was only going to be a two count. The referee took a bump in this match, and again, Jacob Fatu steals the show during this match. He annihilates everybody in this. Right near the end of this match, he just goes crazy like Jacob Fatu does. Two Samoan spikes later, and Solo Sikoa pins Roman Reigns to pick up the victory for the Bloodline. That wasn't all, though. As they go on to the attack even further, they start to put a chair on Jey Uso after the match. They take out Jimmy. Roman's already out. They go to finish off Jey Uso. Sami Zayn comes out to make, well, he comes out, didn't necessarily make the save. There was a lot of looking back and forth, and Solo saying my dog to Sami Zayn and going to hug him. And as Sami Zayn went in from the hug, he turned it into the exploder suplex. That had Solo Sikoa down. Roman and Jimmy come in, cleared the other three out. It left Solo on his own with Roman here, Sammy opposite Roman, and the Usos either side of the corner. Roman goes for the Superman punch. Sami Zayn goes for the haluva kick. Solo Sikoa moves out of the way, and Sami Zayn haluva kicks Roman Reigns. And it says the bloodline, new bloodline, find it hilarious on the outside of the ring. Jimmy Uso thinks it was a deliberate shot. Jey Uso doesn't. So this time with Sami Zayn and the bloodline, it was Jey Uso, if you remember, that was absolutely against Sami coming in. This time it was Jimmy that's against Sami Zayn right now. And on Raw, obviously, we had the bit where Sami was talking with Solo, so I think that's why. But Sami Zayn did look, I'll be honest with you, when he first come out, if you took a look at what he was wearing, I was like, he's actually going heel here. This is going to be, he's joining Solo. I honestly thought he was going to join Solo when I first saw him during this show when he come out, but he didn't. Well, at least we don't think that he did. There was a lot of sort of playing up on whether he's gonna, join Solo. Maybe that will continue throughout until we get to Survivor Series. Survivor Series coming in 3 weeks' time, I believe. 3, 4 weeks' time, 4 weeks, something along those lines. A few weeks' time, anyway, from Vancouver in Canada. So Sami Zayn hasn't quite got the bloodline back yet. And at what point in this does Heyman come in? Because it seems as though Roman Reigns has lost again. Solo Sikoa has got a couple up on Roman now on this. And when do we see the reintegration of the wise man into this? I've got a feeling it needs to come at some point because the bloodline, the OG bloodline, isn't working, and there was the Paul Heyman guidance of the OG bloodline in the past that was so well with their plays. So when do we see him? When does Sammy make a choice? And then the sort of other side to Sammy making that choice and assuming that he does align with the original bloodline. What about Kevin Owens at that point? Because Kevin Owens has turned on Cody Rhodes because he teamed with Roman. He turned on Randy, although he said that Randy turned on him because he was siding with Cody because Cody turned on Roman and he teamed with Roman. So if Sammy then goes, what does that do with Sammy and Kevin's relationship? Because that's always been turbulent. I can't remember. I can't think of the word. It has always been a love-hate relationship with Sammy and Kevin. Does that turn Kevin against Sammy? Assuming Sami Zayn joins the original Bloodline at War Games in a couple of weeks' time. But great start to the show. A lot more questions to be answered for the bloodline stuff, which has been so good over these last 3 years, and we've still got more innings to come. Could we have more inclusions into this? What's going on with Zilla? Hukaleo, we know is coming in. I think he's going to NXT. Do we see Sammy? Do we see Cody again? What happens as we move closer to Survivor Series? We'll have to wait and see. The next match was the women's Fatal Four-Way Tag Team match for Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill's championships. It was Bianca and Jade. It was Piper Niven and Chelsea Green. I'm not going to try the Chelsea. Oh, sorry, Chelsea Green. There you go. You've had it. So you get it. Versus NXT's Metaphor, Lash Legend in that. She was very impressive, actually, Ash Legend in this match. We'll get to that in a minute. And of course, Damage Control, Io Sky and Kairi Sane. There was some really interesting in this because Io and Bianca start, and it was a really good start of some really good wrestling moves between the two. Lots of counters, lots of changes in there. Chelsea Green tagged Io Sky, and she was getting like thrown around like a rag doll. As Jade Cargill was in this. Lash as well. Lash and Jade met up a few times in the ring, and it was a battle of the tall, powerful women in that as well. But one thing I would say about this, Piper Niven. Chelsea Green's obviously the start. I want to see Chelsea Green as women's champion at some point. And once again, I will say this is where you need women's mid-card championships, Triple H. Chelsea Green as women's champion, as women's Intercontinental champion, or whatever, needs to happen in 2025. But one of the most underrated and someone that just goes under this radar during this, and not even just during this match, but during this whole Chelsea Green thing, is Piper Niven. She showed some excellent moves in this. She was the big powerhouse. She was doing the sentons, the body, the high cross bodies, the big moves, the big impact moves in this was done by Piper Niven. Um, she is goes so under the radar. It is unreal how much she goes under the radar in this, and she was brilliant in the tag team match. Now, again, that wasn't without its hiccups as well. There was in the corner there was a leapfrog maneuver which didn't go too well. I don't know if I don't actually know, to be fair, if there was a bit of an issue with the ropes during this, because it ain't the first time in the evening that something goes wrong with a move in the corner. I mean, I'm not making excuses whether the ropes are wet or whatever, but there may have been something up there. But I think the move was slightly mistimed. There was a bit of a hiccup, and like there was just then a bit of a hiccup during that. Because the actual move didn't land what they was trying to do. It was like a press up, like a leapfrog push up over to the top rope, didn't land. They ended up having to redo the move. Piper Niven then cleans house in this. I really loved it. And then Lash Legends and Jade Cargill were just trading shots. It was so good, these two. Really want to see those two in a one-on-one match somewhere down the line. Now, ultimately, there was that big crossbody, like I said, for Piper Niven, but there was then a load of big moves were hit before a doomsday device from Bianca and Jade picks up the victory in this match. But I do think it's not long now before Bianca and Jade will lose those championships. And I think at that point, we're going to start the build for Jade versus Bianca at WrestleMania. I think that's where they're going. They will eventually drop those championships and start that program. I think even Corey Graves made a point on commentary of saying that Jade was too busy putting Instagram pictures up than she was preparing for the match. So perhaps they're going down that line. To get maybe Jade loses focus in a match, it costs them the championship. She turns on Bianca, and we go and off to the races, and we go to WrestleMania build between Bianca and Jade. But that's where I think they're going with this eventually. Right now, they are still the women's championships, and that was a great match, to be fair. It's a bit of a weird one when you think of it, because you were like, is this going to work? Are they going to is it going to work, to be honest with you, as a fatal four-way tag? And it absolutely delivered a high quality women's tag team match. So a really good match there. And having to follow the bloodline thing was never going to be easy, but they done a very good job of it. So kudos to the women in there. Now we come to a match that I was really looking forward to, and I was kind of hoping this match would showcase Bronson Reed in the right way. It was Seth Rollins and Bronson Reed. This has been brewing for some time now, and they delivered a match that was quite funny because if you remember, I think it was like over a year ago now when they done like Backlash after WrestleMania and there was like one match announced with 2 weeks to go and then they just put randomly Seth Rollins against Omos on the pay-per-view and it actually delivered a great match. It was one of those ones that you never expected to deliver it. You expected this to deliver, but you wasn't sure about how Bronson Reed was going to come off of this. Whether this would this be he's cut like a big moment from Bronson Reed? Would this assert Bronson Reed as a star that he is? And I tell you what, it absolutely did in this match. They started it off in the aisleway. It was a quick start and he threw Seth into the timekeeper's table. Then he got like a they got into the ring at that point, so they started to fall on the outside. He threw him into the timekeeper's table. They rolled into the ring, and then they rung the bell. And it wasn't long before in the match that he hits a tsunami. And instead of going for the cover, but playing on the mistake factor here, he goes up again for another tsunami and misses. So he misses that. Rollins is back. You need to see it. It was welting up. It was cut. Rollins took a hell of a beating in this match. It really put Bronson Reed on the map, and it will make people stand up and take notice of Bronson Reed on this. I really hope this is his moment to this is the match that goes to the WWE and say, yeah, Bronson Reed is legit should be in a title pictures or legit main level star because he can go. And they did. They absolutely did. There was a huge power bomb in this for a two. There was a huge superplex by Bronson Reed in this match as well. And eventually, I think there was a stomp that Seth couldn't take advantage of. And eventually, then as action spilled onto the outside of the ring, Bronson had the steel stairs. He went to use them. Seth chopped him off. And Bronson landed on the steel steps. He hit the stomp on the steel steps. Bronson Reed, his eye, just above his eye, was cut. He was bleeding. The eye was already going black. So he'd already had a black eye from this. He then puts him back in the ring, does a super stomp off the top rope to get the 1, 2, 3 on this match. And Seth Rollins does pick up the victory. I was quite surprised by that, to be quite honest with you. And the reason why is I thought perhaps they were going into a program, and maybe they still are. I don't know. Um, I was expecting maybe Bronson to pick up the victory here and then to perhaps then carry on and Seth then gets one back or whatever. So Seth pick up the victory was quite surprising, but it didn't hurt Bronson Reed losing this match. He come out of this match like a megastar that he should be, and you credit Seth Rollins for that as well. The best thing about this was as Seth was leaving the ring, so he'd won the match. Not a lot of time had transpired between him hitting the top rope stomp and him leaving the ring. Bronson Reed is already back up on his feet, wanting more from Seth Rollins. This has to cement Bronson Reed as a top level competitor in the WWE. I really hope it does because it was a tremendous match. Both delivered. Seth will eventually get Punk at some point. I believe that will happen. But yeah, fantastic, brilliant match. And hopefully this has put Bronson Reed on the map like it should do in the WWE. Now we come to the first Crown Jewel Championship match, the pointless championship, which is actually going to be left in Saudi Arabia anyway. So the winners of this match, so it's champion versus champion on both brands, both men and women. The winner receives this big diamond belt, which is Saudi Arabia, but they leave it in Saudi Arabia and they get like a Super Bowl. They get presented with a Super Bowl ring, which will be doing now on the post show. So if anything happens on the post show, I will have a quick flick through after I've finished here, and we can relay anything that's happened back on. But the first match was Liv Morgan and Nia Jax for this championship. Now on SmackDown this past week, Tiffany Stratton planted some seeds that she was going to cash in because they were both pissing her off. Fair. Between and so that added another element to this match. This match was far better than I thought it was going to be. It started off really, really powerful for Nia Jax. Just quickly before we start this, Liv Morgan has not been pinned in a one-on-one match since March. Now, maybe in tag matches she has, but one-on-one has not been pinned since March. Incredible. Anyway, this match was a lot of Nia Jax utilizing that power. She's done this big like Samoan drop, second rope Samoan drop actually for a 2 count in this. There was a sunset flip power bomb by Liv during this match as well, which this match over delivered, by the way. I wasn't sure about how this was going to come off on TV. I wasn't sure if I was going to like it. They absolutely over delivered in this match, perhaps with a little bit too much interference. I'm going to get into that now. Tiffany Stratton goes to cash in for the first opportunity of her cashing in. Doesn't happen. It gets blocked. She stops doing it because Nia Jax is looking at her. Then Nia blocks the Oblivion at this now from Liv. So at this point, and there's also now on the outside, Dominic Mysterio and Raquel Rodriguez have appeared at ringside now. I didn't even see them come out, so I don't know how they got there. The second cashing at this point is blocked by Raquel Rodriguez, who then is sort of circling around with Tiffany Stratton, who's left the Money in the Bank briefcase positioned just on the inside of the ring. So as they're going round the ring, Liv Morgan comes this side of her. So you've got Liv, you've got Raquel, and you've got Tiffany. Nia Jax comes outside the ring, squashes all three of them, including Tiffany. In there as well in that. Now, what happens here is the briefcase gets thrown into the ring. Dominic Mysterio's on the top on the rope on the ring with the referee. Raquel Rodriguez prevents Nia from hitting that avalanche sit down finisher that she does. She kicks her in the head. Liv then hits Oblivion and picks up the victory and becomes the first ever Saudi Arabian champion for the women, which I don't really care about. Should be more Intercontinental champion or US champion, Triple H. But nevertheless, this match for me totally over delivered. I think a lot of people weren't thinking this match was going to be great. It absolutely was. It over delivered on expectations for me on this. Liv Morgan is on the run of her life at the moment. Now, what we do know, just as a side note, is Rhea Ripley is sidelined with a fractured orbital bone, I believe, out indefinitely. So where do they go with Liv now? Because obviously she was still in there with Nia. Do they look at maybe a Selena Vega thing? Who's going to be the bit in between for Liv while we wait for Rhea to get back? We'll have to wait and see. But kudos to the both women. Kudos to both women's matches on there. They both over delivered, in my opinion, in terms of quality, in terms of stuff that was going on in the ring. Absolutely delivered, over delivered in these matches. So congratulations to the women. KO and Randy Orton was meant to be next. When I say meant to be, yes, they did manage to get out. Kevin Owens was wearing a Cowboy Bob Orton sleeveless, which I thought was tremendous, by the way. Before the match, before the ref has even called for the bell, though, Kevin Owens starts attacking Randy Orton with a chair. They go back and forth. The refs and everyone's trying to pull them apart. Kevin Owens hits a stunner on one of the referees. There is like Davari's out there getting beaten up, and at one point I think Randy Orton hit the draping DDT on Kevin Owens. He gives Adam Pearce the RKO, thinking very wisely here. He didn't get he did not going to get a fine, but he did pay Nick Aldis 100 grand when he shouldn't have got 50 because he said that there's going to be another one for him soon. Nick Aldis never eats an RKO. Um, on this, but Randy Orton just dropped Kevin Owens with that sort of thing onto the table that he does. Eventually, they fight into the crowd, and Kevin Owens hits an elbow drop off the top of he climbs up to where the crowd are. Randy's lying on a table. He dives off the stage or off the barrier. Um, with a massive elbow drop. The referee has waved the match off. So there was no match between Kevin and Randy. And that is how that match actually ended. The elbow drop off the barrier through the table from Kevin Owens. So these two are not finished yet. Absolutely not finished yet. Randy Orton and Kevin Owens. Well, KO and RKO. Where does it go from here? Does it go last man standing? Do they do a cage? Do they do something? Something's got to give there. And eventually, Randy Orton will take on Cody Rhodes for that World Heavyweight Championship because Randy keeps on looking at that title. So you know that match is coming at some point. Cody Rhodes has still got some unfinished business with Kevin Owens as it goes, to be fair, because that hasn't finished yet either. So there's still so much to go there, but those two never had their match because Kevin Owens and Randy Orton decided to kick seven bells of shit out of each other before the match has even begun. So, awesome, awesome stuff, awesome stuff. Um, where do we go from here from these? I don't know where we go, but we go right now to the United States Championship triple threat match. LA Knight and Andrade El Idolo and Carmelo Hayes. Now, this was all because LA Knight wasn't the best of referees the other week when he was refereeing the best of the final match in the best of seven match between Andrade and Carmelo. Nick Aldis kind of said, well, you inserted yourself into this, so now you got to take on both of them. And this, again, there was another hiccup in this match. I know I keep having to mention it. There was another hiccup in this match, but this delivered. This was brilliant. It, all three of these guys massively done it in this match for me. Carmelo Hayes, Andrade stood out. I don't know quite know where they sit on SmackDown. I mean, this is the mid-card title, so they definitely sit here. I just don't know if there's anything more they can do with a Carmelo or an Andrade. I know Carmelo was, well, both Carmelo and Andrade were both NXT champions in the past. Whether this is as high as they can go, I don't know. But there was some great action in this. There was an inverted Spanish fly. So you think of a Spanish fly, think of it the other way. Off the middle rope by Andrade on Hayes. There was a brilliant counter when LA Knight tried to do the blunt force trauma finisher on I think it was even on Andrade. But Hayes, at that point, once he countered it, tried to pin them both. It didn't quite get the job done. There was a big double elbow drop off the top rope by LA Knight. Now, the hiccup that went wrong in here was Andrade and Carmelo Hayes were both wrestling on the top rope. LA Knight tries to jump up to hit the German suplex. He crotches himself on the ropes and then has to do it again, eventually getting the big German off. But on top of that, as soon as that hits, Carmelo then hits the nothing but net finisher on LA Knight. And this is very sort of, you're thinking, wow, this could do it. Carmelo Hayes could be the champion. It was broken up by Andrade. And then this was another brilliant way to end this match. So it looked like Carmelo Hayes was thrown into the ropes by Andrade. It looked like they were going for the tilt the world finish or tilt the world move. And as he's sort of tilted him right round to his back, LA Knight comes in, hits the blunt force trauma on Carmelo Hayes and picks up the victory. It was a fantastic finish to this match. All three of these men were brilliant in this. Yes, there was a hiccup, but guess what? Shit happens in wrestling sometimes. That is what it is. They delivered such a great match. Again, this whole card really delivered in so many different ways. And LA Knight is still the United States champion. I kind of felt that was going to be the case, but you never know with these things, especially in Saudi Arabia. They do change it up sometimes. I mean, look at Clash at the Castle in Scotland, when they put the titles on, yeah, Piper Niven and Chelsea Green, right? So yeah, brilliant match. LA Knight picking up the victory though. He will go on to see what's next. Who's the next challenger for LA Knight's United States Championship? Well, we don't know yet. And what's going to happen with Melo and Andrade? Are they finished? I'd like to think they are, but we will wait and see. One thing I didn't know, and I don't know why I didn't know, WWE are taping Monday Night Raw from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. I think tomorrow, Sunday. They're going to be taping Raw because some of the guys, Cody Rhodes, for example, is flying over. He's going to be in London Monday night doing a SmackDown house show with Solo Sikoa in the main event in a street fight. So I don't know if Cody's going to be on the Raw taping or not, but they are taping Raw tomorrow in Saudi Arabia, and there's going to be a fatal four-way match to determine Gunther's next opponent, and it's going to be out of Damian Priest, Dominic Mysterio, Sheamus, and Seth Rollins. The winner of that match will be number one contender for the World Championship. Now, going on from what happened with Judgment Day this past week, could it be Dirty Dom? And that's how they get rid of Dominic Mysterio from the Judgment Day. Do you remember Finn Balor? If you watch the clip on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, he wasn't happy that Dominic Mysterio had a title shot or thinks he could be next in line for the World Championship after pinning Damian Priest, which is a bit weird that Priest is in the match. Dominic beat Priest last week, so sort of saying, well, I'd get my shot, right? Clearly not, because he's now in a number one contenders match, which is, as I say, tape tomorrow, Monday Night Raw, tape tomorrow, Sunday in Saudi Arabia. So we'll be interested when we get the Raw review done with a new co-host this week. I believe I may be joined by another podcaster, Jordan, may be joining me this week. You'll know him as One Breezy on socials. He should be joining me to do a Raw review this week, perhaps even AEW this coming Thursday. We'll wait and see, but hopefully we could be welcoming Jordan onto the show, potentially as a permanent new co-host for the channel. We'll wait and see. Main event time. Cody and Gunther. Crowd are really into this match. And I think a lot of people online were like, "Oh, this is boring." It was nothing but. If you're a fan of wrestling like I am, for as long as I've been a wrestling fan, and this takes me back. This match was like a throwback to a Bret Hart versus Roddy Piper at WrestleMania. If you like that match, I think it was WrestleMania 10 or 8 or something along those lines, when Bret won the Intercontinental Championship off of Piper. If you like that match and you liked old school wrestling with a bit of a new school twist, this match was for you. This was brilliant. They done a bit of technical at the start. They were technical wrestling on the start. Gunther was working on Cody's back for the majority of this match. So when Cody was trying to body slam him and do things, he couldn't get him up. That old school type feel to it, which I loved it. I thought that was brilliant. Gunther dominated this match throughout its entirety, near enough. Cody was getting a few little bits in here and there. Um, and then, as I said, Gunther working on the back, working on the back, working on the back. Cody goes for the disaster kick. Gunther catches him into the Boston Crab, which I thought was fantastic, by the way. Really loved how they were doing this. Really, really loved it. Then he hits the crossroads. He gets a moment in this match where Cody manages to get the crossroads on. Can't get the pin because he's spent. Love that as well. That is old school stuff. You don't see that sort of shit anymore. You'll hit a finisher, then they'll hit another one, or they'll do something stupid, or they'll go straight for the cover. This was an old school one where he couldn't physically get the cover because he was knackered after being beaten to shit by Gunther for most of this match. That's great because that's how it should be. You can't just absorb a load of punishment, hit your finisher, and then go and jump in for the cover. You have to be hurt. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Then there was a power bomb from Gunther, close two count. Then he went for a clothesline. He hit him in crossroads again. Then he got the pin, but it wasn't a free count. Love that. So it was just a great sequence. The finishing sequence to this match was a definite nod to Bret Hart, actually. And if you remember, funnily enough, Gunther actually was the one that was slating Bret that time on Raw. If you remember, one week he was saying about Shawn Michaels and how his favorite was Bret. Oh no, he was talking to Goldberg and how his favorite was Bret. And then he said to Bret on the Raw that week, the week after, something that, he was lying. Anyway, the finish of this was an absolute throwback to that match between Piper and Bret. The Cody cut, he went for a super cutter off the top rope. Gunther caught him in a sleeper hold into that move. And then after they dropped down, Cody then flew back and pinned Gunther's shoulders to the mat. 1, 2, 3 to Cody to win the match. But it was basically a way of saying he got one over on Gunther. So Gunther again come out of that match looking strong. There was no issue there. Cody picked up the victory, no issue there. Actually, a good show of respect between the two at the end. There was a handshake at the end, and Gunther was mouthing something off at the end to Cody. I'm not quite sure what it was, but bit of respect at the end. But my God, listen, people can say what they want about, what you think of the WWE partnership with Saudi Arabia, and that's a controversial subject. This pay-per-view for me was great. I really enjoyed it. I thought, I couldn't fault any of the matches. I don't think any of the matches were wrong in the result, if I'm being totally transparent. I think they pretty much got that right. I would have liked to have seen Tiffany cash in. I think that's the only thing now, really, that's getting a bit tedious. Is now every time there's a women's championship match, Tiffany's trying to cash in and Nia stops her and all that sort of stuff. We need to get that done. That now needs to happen. And it's not. It's very rare that I'm bored of a Money in the Bank briefcase not being cashed in, but I'm getting a bit tedious of this one now. So it needs to happen. But all in all, I thought it was. I think it actually delivered more than what I expected from it. We've got Bronson Reed now cemented as a top level star. We've got another sitting of the bloodline stuff waiting to happen. Sami Zayn's now back in, and he's now in the thick of it. And now we can't wait to see what happens next with that. We have got a new opponent for Gunther being determined on Raw this week. We're gonna get Randy Orton and Cody at some point. We're gonna get Kevin Owens and Cody at some point. For me, delivered, Matt delivered, absolutely delivered pay-per-view. Really, really enjoyed it top to bottom. Didn't think anything was too badly wrong with anything in these matches. All of them were solid, and I thoroughly enjoyed Crown Jewel 2024 from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. But anyway, coming up on the channel this week, we've got an interview with NWA Women's TV Champion Big Mama to drop. Usual review shows, like I said, new co-host on the way. New co-host to, well, at least for now, we're going to see how Jordan and me get on for the Raw and more review and perhaps for AEW as well. Be interesting. New co-host. How's it going to work? We'll find out. So those will be dropping this week as well. Also, get yourselves down to Ignite in the 24th of November, the week before Survivor Series. Get yourself down to Ignite. Tickets are going very, very quickly for the last show of the year. But if you want to go to Eventbrite, type in Ignite Wrestle Pro or Curtain Call Free, and you will see the tickets. Get yourself there. It's going to be a top to bottom show-stealing show with our turnbuckle champion, Mark True, defending in a tag team match with his close personal friend, Kieran Lacey, against the close personal friends of Joe Lando and Danny Black. So get yourselves down to them as well. But for me, I'm done for the day. I'll be back tomorrow with some AEW stuff. Make sure you're back as well. You are watching the Crown Jewel review on the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast with the one, the only constant on this channel, me, Adam Cousins. And until next time, everybody, enjoy the rest of your evening. Buckle down, stay safe, and goodbye.